Welcome to the Autism and Neurodiversity Podcast.
We're here to bring you helpful information from leading experts and give you effective tools and support. I'm Jason Grigla, a licensed counselor and founder of Techie for Life, a specialized mentoring program for neurodiverse young adults.
And I'm Debbie Grigla, a certified life coach. And maybe most importantly, we're also parents to our own atypical young adults. Friends, welcome. We're going to talk about boundaries today. Have you ever struggled with holding boundaries? Have you ever been told that you need to hold better boundaries? Have you ever been confused about where to draw the line or how to actually enforce boundaries or even what we mean by boundaries? I coach a lot of parents who are struggling with their child, their teen, or their young adults, and it's because they either, one, aren't holding boundaries, or they don't even know how to hold boundaries, and it's contributing to a lot of feelings of frustration, anger, resentment, feelings of powerlessness, being stuck or not respected, or two, they are misusing boundaries. And again, it's leading to a lot of feelings of frustration and anger and feelings like nothing ever works and the relationship is suffering. I'm going to share my description of boundaries, how I hold them, how I think about them, and how I actually use boundaries to increase connection and attachment and support my relationship with my children and with those that I work with, and do it in ways that actually support autonomy and development. And I've had a lot of practice with this over the years as I've been a foster parent and adoptive parent and worked with young people and work with students and parents at our program Techie for Life. And so I've had to hone this in. And when you're doing it with children, it's not just cut people off and out of your life. Like, we care about our children and we want to help them and support their happiness and success and development and well-being. And so there's nuances to how you can do boundaries in ways that are actually really supportive. So that's what I want to offer you. Because when you're holding healthy boundaries, you are strengthening relationships. And you're doing it in long-term, sustainable ways. And this is especially important for our autistic and our neurodivergent young people who really need clear boundaries and consistency with those boundaries. And it's important to support autonomy and self-responsibility. And there's no boundaries or they're being misused, it actually contributes to a lot of problems and unhealthy patterns and gets in the way of development. So learning and practicing holding healthy boundaries is actually going to help you, and it's going to help you model self-respect and respect for others. And I think you're going to find it can be a missing piece if you are struggling with your young person. So what are boundaries? There's a lot of different definitions floating around, and people do talk about them, and it's kind of confusing. So I just want to offer to you the way I think about it. Boundaries are something that you create to protect your property, your resources, your time, your energy, your space. Okay, it's what you do to protect you and your stuff, whether it's physical or emotional. And holding boundaries is not about controlling people or being manipulative or any of that stuff. It's about you and your space. And holding boundaries requires two things. One, that you're clear on what your boundaries are. What are your boundaries? What feels like an infringement on your time and space and energy and resources? So being clear on what your boundaries are, and then, and maybe needing to communicate that in some way, like making a request to someone that is infringing, to stop infringing on your boundaries, on your space, on your property. And then the second thing is, once you're clear on what your boundaries are and possibly have communicated that, the second thing, and the second part that's so critical is, what will you do if they continue to infringe on your boundary? And then actually doing it. Because if you don't follow through, then you're really communicating that there actually isn't really a boundary, right? So it's being clear on what your boundaries are, and then being clear on what you're going to do if they infringe on it, and then actually, follow through with that. So for example, this might look like, if you have a baby, for example, and you have a toddler that is hitting the baby, and that baby is your responsibility. Your responsibility to keep safe, right? Baby is in your care. And your toddler, who's also in your care, is like hurting your baby. A boundary might look like, hey, it's not okay to hit the baby. If you continue to be aggressive to the baby, I'm going to ask you to leave the room, or I'm going to take the baby out of the room. I'm going to do something about it. And you make it very clear, we don't hit the baby, right? If you hit the baby, we're going to stop. I'm going to stop this, right? If you don't follow through on that and you allow that toddler to hit that baby, there's no boundary. You have not enforced your boundary. So in that toddler's mind, there is no boundary. So we're clear on what the boundary is, and then we act on it if they continue to infringe on that boundary. Now, a lot of times I see parents not holding boundaries because of fear. Okay. If you are struggling to hold boundaries, you might be suffering or struggling with fear that you might lose the young person that you care about, or that maybe you're afraid that you're going to upset them or make them angry, so you don't hold the boundary. I see a lot of parents not holding boundaries because they're trying to keep their kid happy all the time, and they're afraid of upsetting them. So they're feeling responsible for that child, that teen, that young adult's happiness. And so they don't hold boundaries when they really should be or need to be, because they're afraid that it will make someone unhappy. And honestly, I think a lot of times we don't hold boundaries because it just feels easier in the moment not to deal with it. And, and while it is easier sometimes in the moment, or it might seem easier, when we don't hold healthy boundaries, we actually create a lot of long-term problems down the road. We contribute to a lot of patterns and inappropriate treatment, right? So I do see a lot of parents that have a tendency to overparent or overgive, also being the ones that have trouble holding boundaries. Now, people that are using boundaries inappropriately, this often is also out of fear, but it's a more aggressive form. So they're actually using boundaries because of fear. They're afraid of their child not doing well, or not being successful, or not doing what they want them to. And so they're trying to use boundaries, or they think they're using boundaries, but they're really just trying to control their kid, or they're manipulating their child or their teen, or they're implementing boundaries, but they're doing it out of anger, out of resentment. They're trying to change somebody. They're trying to change their child or their teen or their young adult so that they can feel better. And that's not appropriate use of boundaries. The people in your life are not responsible for your emotional health. It's your responsibility to take care of you and your emotional health. That's what boundaries are actually really about. Like, I need to take care of me and my property, my resources, my energy, and that's my responsibility. So what am I going to do? Boundaries are not about forcing someone else to do something that they don't want to do. It's about enforcing your space, your time, your energy. So how do you actually hold healthy boundaries and do it in a way that's actually effective? And what I want to offer to you is that when you hold a boundary, you want to do it from love. And when I say love, it's got to be love not only for your young person, but also for you, right? It's love for both of us. I love me and I love you, and I'm going to hold this boundary from a place of love. When it's your child, your teen, or your young adult, or someone that you want to keep a good relationship with, we don't just hold a boundary or kick somebody out of our life, right? Like if a stranger is infringing on my boundaries, if a stranger came and started getting physically aggressive towards me, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to call the police. I'm not going to tolerate that, right? And I'm not going to explain myself. Like I'm just going to take action. But with a child, a teen, or a young adult, or somebody that you love and care about, when you're holding a boundary, I have found it very effective to front load and acknowledge that holding this boundary is uncomfortable. Okay, they may not like it. It may upset them, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry about it. And I think we can front load that with, hey, I know this is hard, or you may not like to hear this, but this is the boundary. And if you continue to infringe on my boundary, I'm going to do something about it. We can validate, we can empathize with their emotional experience, with their emotional discomfort, and still hold boundaries. Not only that, but I think when we go into it for having love for them and for us, we also want to know that it's hard to hold a boundary. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to have to put that effort in. And so having love for ourselves and validating our own emotional experience through it, like acknowledging to ourselves that this is challenging and having that space for ourselves, and we can still do it. We can still hold this boundary from love and do the hard thing and do it with confidence. And then we're going to follow through, and we're going to follow through from love. You follow through with what you're going to do if they continue to infringe on your boundary. You follow through every time, consistently. So let me give you some examples of what this might look like. If you had, say, a child that's gaming, okay, and they've got the remote control and they are throwing that their controller down on the ground, and they've broken the controller, or it could break the controller. And that's your game system, right, that you're providing for your child. You can absolutely have a boundary around that. And it might look like, hey, it's okay to get angry. I get it. You get frustrated sometimes playing games, but it's not okay to throw the controller. If you continue to throw the controller or swing it around or do things that might damage it, I'm going to ask you to stop playing the game, or I may take the game away and turn it off. And if they continue to do it, we take the game away, we turn it off, we follow through on what we're going to do with our property. And they may get really upset, and it's okay. And we hold space for them. I get it. I know this is upsetting. You want to play the game. You're just getting angry. I get it. I love you. And we're not going to break this. I'm not going to allow you to break my property. If you have a teen, and let's say they are driving, right? You're providing a car for them that you're paying for, and you pay for the insurance, and you're providing a vehicle to them, and they are misusing that vehicle. Maybe they're driving recklessly or getting tickets and speeding or not taking care of it. Okay. If you were going to hold a boundary from love for you and your property and for them, you have a conversation. Hey, we're providing this vehicle for you. If you can't take care of it, or if you can't, drive it respectfully, then as hard as this is, we're gonna actually take the keys back, and we're not going to allow you to drive that vehicle until you show us that you can be responsible with it. Okay. And they may be really upset. They may make excuses for it, or they may get angry at you. And we get it. Like, I get you're angry and upset about it, and we're still going to have to do this. We don't want to, but we will. So that might be in a teen. Maybe you have a young adult that gets angry and verbally abusive towards you. And so you're on the phone, and you've had a history of this. Maybe I have coached parents that have a history with a kid that's verbally abusive to them. And so they finally hold boundaries, and it can look like, hey, if you continue to talk to me using that kind of language, or if you continue to yell at me, like, it's okay. You can be angry, but I'm not going to continue to talk with you on the phone, and I will hang up if you continue to talk to me in that manner. And I won't talk to you unless you're able to talk to me calmly. Okay. And so it's like acknowledging that, hey, it's okay to be angry. I get it if you're angry, and I'm not okay with that. So I'm going to hang up. You can continue to yell, but I'm going to discontinue the conversation with you. Okay. Holding healthy boundaries with our children, with our teens, with our young adults, it can be nuanced. It can be tricky sometimes. Okay. And when we can do it and approach it from love, that effort, like actually being consistent with it and clear about it, when we can do that from love, it is so worth the effort. Not just for now, even though it's hard in the moment, but there's so many long-term benefits from that. Modeling and teaching and leading out how to treat yourself, right? How to protect yourself and take care of yourself and not be abused or mistreated. and how to show respect to others, and really practicing honoring other people's boundaries. If our kids don't get practice having to respect our boundaries, how are they going to do it for other people that put up boundaries? They're going to struggle with it. So if they've had that practice and with the discomfort of somebody putting up a boundary, they're going to be better adept at respecting other people's boundaries too. So I hope you find this helpful. There's a lot more to this, but I just wanted to give you this clear overview of what it can look like. And if you find this helpful, please share it with others, especially if you know there's somebody that's struggling with this. It's challenging when we're in a parent role to do it in a way that can keep the relationship strong and still self-protect. I hope you found this helpful. Have a great week. Take care. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Autism and Neurodiversity with Jason and Debbie. If you want to learn more about our work, come visit us at jasondebbie.com. That's JASONDEBBIE.com.